All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Chamber Member Monday. We are excited to have you here for our Member Monday with Ed Schmitz and Chris Brubaker with Hantzmon Wiebel LLP. And today's Member Monday is Practical Steps for Profit Improvement. And before I turn it over to these gentlemen to introduce themselves, I would like to acknowledge one of our board members, Sasha Farmer. I think I saw you chime in. If you want to just say a hello, we appreciate our board members supporting our chamber events. So thank you all for being here. I know it's going to be an informative session. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ed and Chris.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ed Schmitz. I'm an advisor here at Hantzmon Wiebel. And, we all want to improve profit. So hopefully you'll get some good ideas out of this presentation. I've been in public accounting for about 20 years, and I was in industry for 10, so I have a little bit different perspective because I've been on both sides of the desk, so to speak. So Chris, go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Ed. And I'm Chris Brubaker. I'm also in our advisory services practice here, and also we're working our tax and business valuation practice as well. So what we did want to do today is focus on profit. And so kind of the first question that comes up is why is that our focus? Profit's important to businesses for a lot of reasons. Unfortunately, I think profit kind of gets a bad name sometimes in the press and in the culture. But really, it's I don't think I'm telling you any secrets when I say that it's not bad. It's a very good thing. Some reasons that it is good. It really is a sign that you're providing benefit to others, right? I mean, you can't have profit if you're not providing something that's more valuable to the person who's receiving it than the inputs that you've used to produce it. And so it is just a sign of your value. It's also a sign of how efficiently you're using your resources. Profit's the source of capital for growth for any organization. And really, it's the reward to an owner for his risk taking in the business. And so there's a lot of reasons why profit is something that you need to have. We want to focus on that today. Now, obviously, for some organizations, maybe focusing on growing sales or some other metric might be more important than profit. But eventually, if a business doesn't have profit, it's not going to be able to survive and to thrive. And so sort of our framework today is just this basic little accounting equation here. What is profit? Profit is really just our revenue minus our expenses. So we're going to focus first on the revenue side, and we'll talk a little bit later about keeping expenses under control.
Okay, so just to start this and kind of use this framework, you'll see this throughout this presentation. We use this tool called Now, Where, How. And really, what we want to do is, determine where are you now with regards to revenue, profit, wastes, expenses later on we talk about. And then once you know where you are now, where do you want to be? And that's the where. And then once you know that, then the how starts to come into focus. And you'll be able to see, how are you going to get from the now to the where. So some people, they know where they are now and they just try to jump right to the how. And you might work on things, but at the end, you're not going to get to where you want to go by doing it that way. So we recommend this process, to really start, where you are now, where do you want to be, and then how are you going to get there? So for an example, if you're a supermarket, and if you're at 1% profit right now, and that's kind of the industry standard, and you want to grow to 3%, well, the how then is going to be, maybe taking on more exclusive products or expanding into other businesses or that have more margin or whatever. So that's going to look different than a supermarket that's only at 0.25% gross profit percentage when the industry is 1%, and they're just trying to get to 1%. So the how for them is going to be a lot different. So anyway. And before we get too far into it, we wanted to talk a little bit about sustainable competitive advantage. And that's really, the we will win by. So, how will you compete in the marketplace? What advantages do you have that your competitors don't have? So I've got some listed there. It's not all encompassing list, but the expertise of your team, the brand, could be your patents or trademarks, copyrights. You'll win by having the best response time or having the best quality product or service, having the lowest price or being the most innovative. And I just want to caution you, if you're going to try to compete on lowest price, it's more difficult than you probably think, unless you've tried it before, because really it's really important to get this right, because this is going to permeate throughout your whole organization, your sustainable competitive advantage. So if you are going to compete on lowest price, let's say like Southwest, they're the lowest price airline. Well, that permeates the whole organization. So their headquarters isn't going to be in Midtown Manhattan. They're not going to have a wide list of food choices for the passengers. They're going to be very frugal throughout the whole organization. Whereas if you think about Apple, they probably think that they're probably the most innovative. They're going to win by being the most innovative. They create products that people don't even know they need. And after they get them, they can't believe they lived without them. So like smartphones and things like that. So anyway, it's very important to know what your sustainable competitive advantage is. And that way things will be more in focus for you.
And that feeds a little into this next model that we have, which we call the product surround. And it's really just sort of a way of helping you understand what your business is and what customers are looking for. The light blue circle there in the middle, what we're calling the core, is really sort of the essence of the business. It's the essence of the product or service that you offer. It's the thing that really, without it, you really don't have a product. And then the surround is sort of things that go around that, and it's different features, different benefits. And what we've found is that a lot of times customers or buyers tend to really focus more on that surround area, right, rather than on the core. I mean, people sort of assume that what's in the core is going to be there regardless, and it's really what's surrounding that's important. We've got there that maybe the core has 20% of the impact for 80% of the cost, and then vice versa for the surround. I mean, certainly those percentages are not set in stone, but we have seen that that's sort of typical, that you can maybe have a little bit more work on what's surrounding your product, and have that have a big benefit. And so to kind of be more concrete with that, what if you think about a business like a gym? So its core would be really just the facilities, right? The building and the equipment is really the core of what the gym has. But then if you look beyond that, what's surrounding that is sort of what can differentiate one gym from another. And maybe that's things like the hours that the gym is open, what kind of classes or personal training it offers, what other kind of amenities it might be there, the pricing structure or the contracts structure that the gym has for its memberships. Those are the things that a customer is going to focus on, really assuming that sort of that core is already going to be met. And that's one of the lessons too we'll kind of come back to a lot of times through this, particularly on the revenue side, is really focusing on what's important to your customer, not so much on what you think is important about your business.
Okay, moving on to pricing strategy. So, I mean, it's important to get the pricing strategy correct, because if you're pricing your product or service too low, you're leaving money on the table. And if it's too high, you're going to lose out on business that you should be getting. So there's a three-step process here. So the first step is, what are your costs? And then plus the profit that you want to make. So of course, materials, labor, overhead, those are your costs. And then the profit. So that combined, it would be the price. So that's step one. Step two is to look at your competitor pricing. So let's say in this example, let's say if we were a laptop manufacturer, we look at the competitors. If ours is $1,000, competitor A and B are a little bit more than us, and C is a little bit below us. And then we move on to step three and looking at the market. And this is really looking at the benefits from the customer perspective. We may think, we know what they want, but really from the customer's perspective, what are the benefits that they want? So in this case, reliability, size, weight, speed, storage capacity. And what we do here is then we weight those benefits, and they add up to 100%. So in this case, and again, you'd have to, based on research or, surveys of customers, what do they feel is important? And then you put your own product first and you put it at 50%. So you take a half of all the weights there. So the reliability of the weight of 40%, half of that is 20%. So once you have your column set, then you look at your competitors. So in this case, competitor A is a little bit more reliable than us. Size and the other factors are going to be the same. Competitor B is completely the same as us. And then C, the reliability is a little bit less, size and weight's a little bit less than us, and then the speed and storage is the same. So, from there, then you can look at, okay, what can we do from a pricing perspective? Well, we're the same. We have the same product basically as competitor B, but they're already selling for $100 more than, so we could increase our price and not lose any market share. Competitor A, they're more reliable. So could we make our product, our laptop more reliable? And then we could charge even more, up to $1,300. How much would that cost to increase the reliability to be able to charge $300 more? So, and then this is just an exercise to kind of point you in what to focus on from the customer's perspective. Very similar to the products around that Chris just talked about. From the customer's perspective, what do they want?
Okay, thanks, Ed. And this is this book, Spin Selling, is one that we've read and tried to implement here, and we've talked to several clients about it and how to implement the process that this talks about. It's sort of an old book. I mean, I would recommend that you read it. I mean, I think it's from like the late 80s, early 90s. And Neil Rackham is the author, and it's based on his research, which was pretty in depth of selling techniques and selling methods and what worked and what didn't work in various sales processes, what he learned from that and how it applies. I will say it's great for people who say they're not good at selling or who say they don't like traditional selling, as accountants tend to be, so it's good for us. It really focuses more on benefits to customers rather than on just trying to make more money. We think about it, I think we all believe in our products, we all believe in our services, we all believe we can help people. So our goal is to do that, not really to move money from one pocket to another. And so this is really the focus of the book is helping that and being able to make yourself known and make yourself known how you can help people. There's a lot to the book. There's some kind of helpful hints as far as techniques you can use to make your sales calls more effective. The SPIN, though, is an acronym which stands for situation, problem, implication, and need, payoff. And those are 4 types of questions that Rackham breaks down that we can take a look at. The situation is it's really just kind of what's going on, right? It's the facts and circumstances of the case. What the author recommends is that you not really focus on that time, your valuable time asking questions on that. Those are typically things you can find through doing research before your sales call. Better to focus first on the problems, which that's asking in-depth questions of a potential client about what problems they have, and really asking good questions and listening to what the deeper issues may be and the problems they identify. Implication is the I, and so that goes from a problem to what the problem really means to the customer or the client. And it's important, I think people who are selling tend, once they hear what the problem is, to say, oh, I've got a solution for that, and to start offering solutions at that point. You're going to be more successful with sales if you take that next step and go to the implication first. Let the customer really see kind of what those problems mean before you start introducing any kind of solutions. You'll have more success in the person wanting to buy your services. And then the last is need, payoff, which again, that is it sort of goes hand in hand with the implication, in that it's, okay, what benefits can I offer, and what would those benefits do to help you solve the problems we've identified, and how would that be a benefit to you? So it really, the purpose of the questions is really to kind of get more buy-in from the customer who's buying, and to increase the chances of success in that sales call. That kind of feeds into the sales process that we have on the next page. And the first really goes to those first sort of questions, which is really understanding your customer, understanding what their needs are. And then we kind of break those needs down into two categories, which are implicit needs, which is what a client or customer needs, but doesn't necessarily know he needs, and then explicit needs. And so the goal of asking those questions is to help the client understand what those needs are, to make those really explicit and at the front of the customer's mind. They can also identify the benefits and the features of your product or service. And here we want to focus too. This kind of goes a little bit back to that, to the products around we talked about earlier. A feature is really sort of what our product does. And unfortunately, a lot of business people really focus on features because that's how they understand the business they're doing. Customers don't care about that though. Customers care about the benefit, which is what can you do for me, not how are you going to do it. And so you want to be able to identify what those benefits are for the customers. And to reiterate what we mentioned a couple of times already, focus on what's important to the customer, not what's important to you as the seller. The spin questions we talked about a slide earlier are going to help you with both of those steps above. But then once you have interest from a potential customer, you're going to need to be able to prove that you can do what you say you can. And so that's what we call proof of capability. That's typically a website these days. Beyond that, you can have things like testimonials from current customers. You can do sort of thought leadership kinds of papers and things. All of those things to show that you can actually provide what you say you can provide to a customer. And then the last thing we have in the process is to really document the process. So after you've gone through a sales call and made a try at a sale, look at what worked, look at what didn't, look to learn from that to see you can see that the next time you go out, what can you do differently to hopefully have more success as you're going forward.
So going back to the products around, there's those features. We talked about the pricing and from the market analysis, and we also talked about the sales process itself. So out of those areas, there should be a lot of ideas of how to increase revenue. And so, you'd want to brainstorm all those ideas, and you want to come up with as many as you can, and have your team come up with as many as you can. But from there, then we want to create what we call the one-page plan. And this is really going back to that now, where, how again that we talked about before. So on one sheet of paper, it's not a 20-page strategic document that nobody's going to look at. It's one sheet of paper. In the upper left, where are you now? That's the peg in the ground. Where do you want to be? In this case, revenue. And then, out of your brainstorming session, you really need to use the Pareto principle. You want to zero in on the 20% of those ideas that'll give you the 80% of the results. So, if you can come up with 3 of those that are going to give you the best results, and then what are the specific actions you're going to take, who's responsible, and then when are they going to do it? And from there, you can get some accountability in the process. So you're trying to move dials in the right direction, and then, circle back maybe 6 to 8 weeks later, were those things done? Because things are very specific at this point, especially in the actions. Did they get them done? And circle back, and then, if those all are done, then maybe you go back to the list and pick another 3 to help out. So now we'll move to the expenses.
And we'll focus here more on waste. I mean, this is a tool that we've used a lot in our practice with clients. The 7 wastes, it comes from some work that Toyota did, I think back in the 60s or so. And so you'll see that as you look at them initially, they look typical to a big manufacturing company. But what we have seen is that you really can apply them to any kind of business and help out. And so one is overproduction, which simply means producing more than you need before you need it.
Such as like excessive reports, or over reviewing things, or for a service organization, providing more service than really the customer wants or needs.
Okay, so waiting, and that's again, it's inefficiency and somebody sitting around not doing the work you should be doing.
Yeah, so waiting for things to be reviewed, or for payments from customers, waiting for decisions to be made by the boss, typical things like
Transporting, so that's moving work between one stage and another.
Excessive material handling, product that might be damaged when it's being moved around, looking at the layout of the factory or the office, if it's a service organization, the warehouse, things like that.
I like to think of inappropriate processing as using the wrong tool or the wrong person for whatever the job is.
Yeah, so that could be using outdated equipment, printing reports on paper instead of just emailing a PDF, so wasting paper. Using non-standardized processes, so everybody's doing it a different way. So you really want to standardize processes as much as possible.
This you can almost tie 1 and 5 together a little bit. Inventory is having more inventory than you need. And maybe one quick point that what we've seen when we've worked with this with clients is trying to guide them not to focus on whether it's a 1 or whether it's a 5. Just get it down somewhere. I mean, this is just a framework to help you think about your business.
Yeah, really just to jog people's memory of what is considered waste. Some people might not think of these things, but in inventory would be, the product range is too large. Excessive supplies or excessive raw materials and finished goods, things like that.
Number 6 is motions, and that really is what it says. It's physical motion, so it's moving from one place to another in a way that's not efficient.
So having a disorganized workspace, the desk layout, or having a start-stop mentality, picking things up and back and forth all the time.
And then defects is pretty self-explanatory. It's mistakes that have to be corrected.
Yeah, in a manufacturing setting, it's scrap, but in a service organization could be missing deadlines or having poor quality of a service or in manufacturing, things like that. So once, and what we recommend is you have your team, break your team up into smaller teams and really use everybody in the organization, all the different levels in the organization at least, and to try to get ideas, because you'd be surprised at people who, some people on the front lines know where waste is, because every organization has waste. So, when we facilitated these, it's really been interesting listening to the discussions from the various levels of people in the organization. So once you have this long list, and again, this slide only has 3, and but this list could be quite long, and you don't have to have 3 of every different type of 7. And it doesn't matter which category they're in ultimately. But at the end of the day, you want to have a brainstorm this list of various wastes in your organization, and then you need to zero in on it. So we have this tool, this waste audit process. So here, we've got the waste listed, and then we want to assign some type of a cost to it. And it's not an accounting exercise. We're not trying to get it down to the penny. In fact, you don't even need numbers. You could have just a low, moderate, high as far as cost or waste. Is it a high waste or a low waste type of thing? And then also have a scale of ease of removal. And this will feed into the next slide, because here we're gonna graph or plot the various wastes. And what we're looking at is based on one side is ease of removal and the other side is savings, just from that previous slide. But the upper right quadrant is where you want to focus, because those are the ones that are the easiest to remove and give you the biggest savings. So if you have some in that quadrant, you're going to focus in on those. And that leads us back to this.
Yeah. And I won't go into this too much because we're up against time, and because Ed's already gone into a pretty good description of it. I will say a couple of things I really like about this tool is that, it forces you to get your thinking down to one page. It forces you to prioritize, so you're not trying to do 10 different things. You're trying to do 1 or 2 things and maybe have some success at it. And then I think we talked about the now, the where, the how before. I think the who and the when down in the bottom corner of the one-page plan are really important too, because it creates some responsibility for a person and a date to have that done. And then I guess last, what we've seen as far as that when piece is important. You want to give people enough time to get something accomplished, but not so much time that it just sits there before they do anything with it. So we found that like a 6 to 8 week period is usually a pretty good period to have your action take place.
So the key takeaways, of course, profit is vital for any organization to grow. An organization must understand customers' needs to grow sales. All organizations have waste, so waste reduction is always an opportunity for profit improvement. And if you think about it, it's some of the fastest ways to increase profit, because if you try to increase sales, you have costs associated with those sales. But at the same time, if you can cut waste, it's an immediate increase to profit. And as with all strategic planning, implementation is the key to success. We left a few minutes for questions.
Ed and Chris, that was very, very interesting. Are there any questions out there? Well, I do have one. You all had mentioned that, Ed, you were speaking about how providing customer service too much customer service can be wasteful. Elaborate on that, because we're in business, you often hear about providing that customer service and going to the limit. So speak more about how at times that can be wasteful.
Well, that goes back to your strategic competitive advantage. So if you're saying that, you're going to win by having the best service, well, then you're going to have to overperform on service. But in some cases, if the client expects a certain amount of service, and you're providing even more than what they expect, it's more cost for you to do that. So they're not even expecting that. So it will kind of tie into the strategic competitive advantage to some point. But in some cases, you could over provide, and they don't even appreciate it, because they don't even know, because they're only expecting a certain amount and you're giving them that much more.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Andrea, it goes a little bit to the features and benefits that we talked about too, right? So I mean, it's what do we see as valuable versus what does the customer see as valuable? As long as you're as long as you're satisfying what they're looking for, then anything more may not be necessary.
Mm-hmm. Would it be too much for you to provide an example of what you speak about? Like if customer X is expecting this, but you provide this. Yeah, I'm just thinking from my perspective here at the chamber. What am I wasting time providing too much customer service, if you will? As we have a board member on the call, but just thinking of an example of what that looks like, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, Andrea. I mean, maybe it's things like if you're giving chamber members information that they don't need or that they don't appreciate, even if it's something they don't know that they need, it's something that's taken up your time, it's taken up your resources, but they may not necessarily see it as beneficial as you do. And so, that kind of is a little bit of excess customer support, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say if you gave, as an example, let's say if you gave like a Chamber of Commerce pen to all the new members and a little pad of paper. Well, if they don't have any, they weren't expecting that when they joined. They joined because they want to, grow their business and create other people who want to grow their businesses. So they're not expecting that. So there's not much value to them for that.
Okay. But you wouldn't know that unless you gave them the pad and pen, right? So is it almost like is it almost like you have to learn by example? It's like, oh, I realize that I'm providing a service that I really don't need and that they're really not asking for.
Yeah, you have to know your customer. Yes, yeah. For sure.
Okay. So Robin says this speaks to the comment Chris made about walking their prospective customer implications and demonstrate the benefits. Robin, would you like to expound?
Sure. So I wrote it down. You have more success in sales if you walk your potential sort of team member or customer, right, through what the implications of their problems are. And then you can have that conversation, like what's the process for uncovering, sometimes people are really sensitive, right, about the problems and the implications that for their personal lives or their businesses. And so if you can identify effectively what your benefits are that you offer, it kind of uncovers using the pad of paper example. Like then you could be, it might lead you to asking, would it be helpful to you to have a paper and a pen that's branded with Chamber, because we're right there and you can always contact us or not. But I would love to hear more about your process, like, and this may be a whole nother presentation and topic of actively uncovering and walking through the implication, the problems, the implications of problems, so they reveal like how they feel about those problems.
Yeah. And that's important. And you know, Ed and I, we kind of tried to squeeze a 45-minute presentation into 20 minutes. So we left out a little bit, but you know, that's a big piece, and that you do want to be able to ask good questions and talk to potential customers about you know, what those problems really mean to them, and what it would mean to be able to solve those for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, you're going to have more buy-in if you're letting them kind of come to that decision by themselves. They're going to believe in that more than if I'm just saying, hey, I can do this for you, right? I mean, then you know, you don't really see it as valuable as you would if you kind of came to it through your own thought process. And then a lot of it, like we mentioned before, is just asking good questions and listening for good answers, and really trying to get to the root causes of what customers' problems are. Does that answer, Robin, more or less what you were asking?
Well, I mean, it does on an abstract level, you know, but how much detail can you go into when you have 30 minutes?
Well, the book is really well done, so we would definitely recommend you pick that up. And it's a quick read. It's not like it's, you know, 500 pages or whatever. It'll go by quickly.
Fantastic.
I think Graham has a question.
Yeah, so very quickly, thank you for this presentation. It was really helpful, great reminders of all the basics. As you talked about waste in knowledge work, one of the things that I've experienced is that the biggest waste is of people doing email. So they're consumed by, their attention is consumed by their email, and it takes them away from creating whatever value they do on a daily basis. And I'd love to hear any tips that you have for knowledge work folks building their business processes to get out of email and into doing the work.
I'm not sure I have any. I mean, I'm not great with keeping out of it. I mean, I think I do okay. I think I'm better than some of my partners. I think you know, I've seen things like deal with, you know, sort of categorize. If it's something you can deal with right now, deal with it right now and knock it out so it doesn't hang over you. If it's something that's going to take some time, set it aside in a folder and don't think about it again until you can set some time aside to do just that for a while. That's probably the best I've seen, which, Ed, I'm not sure about you, but
yeah, I've heard also, you know, some people will only deal with email, you know, twice a day, you know, at 11 and 4 or whatever, and then they even turn it off. I mean, they don't even look at it. It's not distracting. It's not, you know, also turning off the little ringtone every time you get an email, so that you're not being distracted every email that you get. So those are other things that I've heard over the years.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions for Chris and Ed? Well, gentlemen, thank you all so much. And we understand you gave us a lot of information in a little time that you did. And so it's been very helpful. But did you have your contact information on the screen? Or you could certainly share it right now or put it in the chat in case anyone has any questions. They can reach out to you all. All right. Well, Member Mondays are open to any of our chamber members that would like to share their expertise on a topic that would help our members grow their business, you know, help with their professional development, and help with their business. And so we will love to have you. It's just $25 for 30 minutes, and sometimes we go over. It's no big deal if we go over. But again, it's just a way for us to provide a benefit to our chamber members and to help them with their business. All right, let's see, Graham. Thanks, Robin. Okay. All right.
Guys, can we grab a quick photo before everyone signs off?
Y'all, this is Anne Marie. She's also with the chamber. She does all our communications and social media. So she wants to take a picture of us.
I know nobody likes it, but it's fun for us. Thanks,
Okay.
guys. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Ed and
Thank you for
Chris,
your
as
time.
always, we thank you for your support, and best of luck to you all on the move.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.